Welcome back to another edition of Research Fantasy Presents NBA Fantasy Baller DFS edition for Sunday, March 19th, 2017. I promise one day I'm going to figure out what day it is and actually not have to reference the calendar on my Mac. I'm going to change things up a little bit today, kind of go over a little bit what we did yesterday. I was happy with the value picks, and I know that we could have brought up Jason Smith, even though the news of Markieff Morris sitting out again wasn't out. We could have mentioned Jameer Nelson, but especially with my value plays, if I can, I want to try to find some guys who maybe will go a little bit under the radar. It's always good to have even a high-owned value play go off for a big score, but it's even better when you can get that, and that's with less ownership, and that's exactly where we were at with Zach Randolph last night, who was one of the two with Joe Johnson and Tony Allen. All of them finished fine. I would say Randolph definitely the best, was at 6x on DraftKings. I know that they weren't the sexiest picks. I mean, nobody wants to hear a bunch of aging dudes because there's always concerns they could be resting, but they accumulate fantasy points just like everybody else does. I don't think any of them were on tournament winning lineups necessarily, but I can assure you that I had 50% of both of them actually, and I cashed, the vast majority of my lineups last night, so definitely didn't hurt you. I'm actually trying to find who we suggested as our main plays because my brain is mush at this point. But thank you to everybody who watched yesterday. It was actually our biggest episode yet. Yeah, Will Barton yesterday was one of our top plays. He just crashed and burned. Mason Plumlee did okay. He's definitely on point right now. John Wall was average. I was really excited to get him at that $9,300 price, but just really didn't. That game was just slow and sloppy. So I'm going to change it up, like I said, a little bit today because it's 11:56 Eastern Time. The game started 6 tonight. There's two major situations in the last two games of the evening that could have a lot of impact on how you have to construct your lineups. So before anything else, I'll just read off some names that our module really likes today. We've got Anthony Davis, Hassan Whiteside, CJ McCollum, Jordan Crawford, Thad Young, Gorgie Jang, Karl Anthony Towns, Tyler Johnson, Josh Richardson, Corey Joseph, Drew Holiday, Jusuf Nurkic, Damari Carroll, James Johnson, Miles Turner, DeMar DeRozan, D'Angelo Russell, Andrew Wiggins. Man, has his price come down. DeMarcus Cousins, Jeff Teague, and Skal Labissiere. Okay, so the most notable things were, you don't see any Spurs, you don't see any Cavs. We'll get to that a little bit later. I'm going to talk about this in one of the videos earlier this week. I want to see how it goes. This is just a limited sampling of how I planned on doing this, but I want to just kind of take a look at the games and see how they could pan out tonight. First up, you have Portland and Miami. Portland is the road team here. 211.5 point total, 5.5 point spread favoring Miami. Miami is not a team that I really like to play people against. They're maybe not the most defensively sound, but they don't seem to give up really big performances. But we've got a couple of hot players. The production is typically pretty congested in Portland between, first and foremost Lillard, but then to his secondary extent, CJ McCollum and Jusuf Nurkic. Big thing I want to pay attention to here is Hassan Whiteside. And I don't want to use the word injury, but he kind of hurt his shoulder as the game wound down on Friday night. So there's always a chance he may not play, and if he doesn't, that really amps up Gordon Hayward, and also a lot of the guys, specifically like Lillard and Nurkic, I think, gain a lot. With Waiters out, it's a time battle between Wayne Ellington and Josh Richardson, and I do like Richardson, but I think Waiters being out most benefits James Johnson. you guys got to remember, like, it's not always a positional thing. It's not always that a shooting guard will benefit when a shooting guard is out. He'll benefit with the minutes, but the usage seems to swing more towards Johnson when Waiters is out, and he can be had at a good price. And actually, Tyler Johnson would be my 1B on that one. Both of them are priced affordably. That can really still bring you value. Next up, we've got Indiana visiting Toronto. Lowest point total of the day at 196. Toronto, the 3-point home favorite. It's going to be interesting here. Teams have been able to take away DeMar DeRozan by double teaming him. Eventually, that's going to stop. We've seen his price drop to a point where I still don't like him on FanDuel, but it's getting really tough on DraftKings to ignore him when he's under 7,700. Eventually, he's going to have another 50-plus fantasy point performance. I like the showdown aspect today between he and Paul George. If Ibaka or Valanciunas can get going, and hopefully both can get going, that's going to open things up for DeRozan, and it's also going to help this game exceed the total. So that's where I'm kind of looking at that game going today. I think it's going to be a little slower and methodical, but a lot of these guys are priced down outside of Paul George because they've been poor producers. Miles Turner, Jeff Teague, Thaddeus Young specifically. Let's move on to probably my favorite game of the night right now, which is Minnesota and the New Orleans Pelicans. 207.5 point total, 3.5 point home favorite Pelicans. We're assuming that DeMarcus Cousins will play. I think that this game should be fun. It could be a defensive. I just really don't see it. I know that, like, neither team plays extremely fast. I know that Alvin Gentry wants to push for whatever reason with two quality big guys like that, but that's why he won't be coaching here by the end of the year anyway. All of our major players are in play tonight, and you can get some good value from this game too. I think Shabazz Muhammad's still underpriced for the role that he's going to have to take with Nemanja Bjelica out. And then you've got Jordan Crawford and Etuan Moore, who both have to chip in. I don't really love the idea of trying to, hop on the Solomon Hill train because he's not a consistent producer. It's not the worst idea in tournaments to have a little bit of exposure because he's still underpriced despite his big performance, but it's just not going to happen that much. DeMarcus Cousins playing that game would not have resulted in a huge game for Solomon Hill, and as long as we think that Cousins will be back tonight, then, the upside pretty much completely disappears for Solomon Hill. The last two games I'm going to lump together because they were both in the same situation. Sacramento at San Antonio. San Antonio 13-point favorite, 202.5 point total. Cleveland visiting the Lakers. Cleveland is an 11.5 point road favorite, 222.5 total. That's the highest total on the day. Biggest issues here is I could see both coaches resting some of the star players, and I'm referring to San Antonio and Cleveland. I understand that Cleveland just sat Kyrie, LeBron, and Kevin Love last night. There's nothing saying that Tyronn Lue isn't going to know that this game is in hand because the Lakers are that bad that the Cavaliers B squad, which isn't very good, can definitely overtake them. And Pop, I think, coming off of that loss against Memphis last night, wouldn't be shocked to see him give at least Aldridge, but I wouldn't be surprised if Leonard got to sit this game out. So I'm really waiting to really put any more thought into the slate until we see some news, which I haven't seen yet, and I looked right before we got on our video today. But a lot of value can appear in that game. Even without it, I love the upside for Skal Labissiere. I know I'm not saying that right, but he's still underpriced, and he's a monster. You have to assume that Georgios Papagiannis, after his first double-double last night, could see some extended time tonight. Dave Yeager's been sitting players a lot. Wouldn't be surprised to see him sit Tolliver or Costa, or maybe both, to give his younger forwards, the trio of Willie Cauley-Stein, Skal Labissiere, that time I said it right, and Georgios Papagiannis, some more run. Deron Williams would make an excellent play, as would Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith at their current costs if the big three was to sit in Cleveland once again. That will wrap it up for today. Thank you for joining. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be back tomorrow with our regularly scheduled format of our core 3 plays as well as 3 value plays. Make sure to head over to researchfantasy.com, sign up for our NBA mailing list, like us on Facebook, follow us at Research and Win on Twitter, and join us again tomorrow.